Hello, I'm Chuck Wereflow on Twitter, Chuck Webster, and that is my social virtual reality avatar. And this is a special health systems chat in social VR the day before our Health IT social media tweet chat about health IT and sustainability. Because this event is about sustainability, healthcare, and the Internet of Things. So in a few minutes, other folks wearing virtual reality headsets will show up and we'll see their social VR avatars in this auditorium. It's a music concert hall that we borrowed from the local music school. And as you can see, there are some folks. You may see yourself out there. Hi, Elton, close personal friend. Daniel Craig off there in the left. And we have the various content. That's the blog post for tomorrow. Health IT and sustainability. This is actually the second year that we've done a Health IT in Healthcare event during the annual Internet of Things World Virtual event. So we've got some infographics here. We have stickers for social distancing, so I'm not supposed to sit there. We've got please stand here. So it's very topical. And we are going to be talking about, amongst many things, we're going to be talking about, just adjusting something there in my editor, the United Nations Sustainability Development Goals. And their glosses here. No poverty, and poverty in all its forms everywhere for all people, and zero hunger, good health and well-being, obviously very relevant to sustainability and health IT connection, because healthcare is one of the sustainability goals. And so quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth. We've got the rest of them over here. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. I like it. Reduce inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production. Climate action. We've done actually a bunch of climate-related events here in Social VR. Life below water. We've done that. Life on land. Ecosystems, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And then down here we have partnerships for the goals. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalization to revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. So here we are. We're on stage. And in 2 or 3 minutes, folks will start to materialize. It's kind of like the holodeck in Star Trek. So anyway, the spawn point is right over there. And by the way, if folks want to subscribe, they can click on that. And the browser is right there. So you can subscribe. I've already subscribed, so I don't need to click anything. And let's see, next week, we're doing sustainability transitions, radical transformations toward more sustainable societies. See the little robot? The little robot is admiring a seedling. And you see, we have kind of like Earth under glass. Join a special health systems chat aboard a space biosphere, 1,000 years in the future, inhabited by the last robot caring for the last seedling. As we consider what might have been, how might we have avoided our eventual extinction? Yes. So it's about alternate histories and futures. And it should be very interesting. So, let's see who we have out here. All right. John Lynn, Colin Hung. Yeah, we got some great. She looks familiar. I think she was in Game of Thrones. And, oh my gosh. Is that Billie Eilish? Oh my gosh. And there's Bob over there. Okay. Yep, good. Everybody should have masks on here because it looks like they're less than 6 feet apart, but virtual reality can be, hey Lindsay, how you doing? Can be a little bit deceiving. Alrighty, so we are about a minute or two away from people starting to appear right over there. I put the spawn point right about there. But isn't this neat? I feel like I'm actually standing on this stage right here. In fact, I can zoom up there into the audience. Look. Is that cool or what? It's what? It's cool. So, I'm bounding down out of the audience and landing on the stage. Oh, this will probably seem real jerky. Oh, there's our first victim. Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Hi, I like your stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you missed my my satellite event last week. Did you know about it? I should have sent you a link. You know.
No, sorry. Yeah, I've been pretty
Yeah.
busy.
Okay. Let me. Yeah. We met. You know what CubeSats are, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're.
I actually got involved with a few of those projects by being a supplier of the
Yeah.
equipment that goes on.
Man, I got to include you. We got about 4 or 5 people who are ganging up to try to get together a social virtual reality CubeSat sponsored, like a club.
Oh yeah, I used to design like space and military stuff, and I was thinking, man, this is so cool because you could, they let anybody do this.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah, you've heard of course they get down to now called pocket cubes. Are you familiar with those? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we could have used you. I should have leaned on you. Oh well, but yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's all right. How do you like my social distancing stickers?
Yeah, just like a baseball game.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Do they have? Did you get money from each person?
That would be actually an interesting idea. Yeah. Okay, I'll have to think about trying to monetize this.
Well, that's what the baseball people did. You know that,
right?
Well,
that's where I got the idea.
Yeah.
Oh, we got more people.
Yeah, that's pretty
There's
good.
Pookie, who I'm adding as a friend, and Meph. Friends for 27 months. Where you been, Meph? It's my dog here. Shush.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make it to you're doing that thing with the DC one, right?
Yeah, that's the. I gotta get up and close the door otherwise my little dog is gonna go nuts. Oh well.
Okay.
Yeah, the DC one is the. That's the. I forget the. I'm blocking. I have so many cables here, trying not to trip over anything. Okay, so I'm back. Step into my whatever navigational barrier thingy. Okay. What were we just talking about? That's the computer graphics, SIGGRAPH.
So are you planning on having like a recreation of DC museums in the alt space?
Well, no. What I did was I put. Okay, I found a really good 360 view of the Washington Monument and Lincoln Memorial and so forth at night. Okay, and then I have one of those classic tour buses that you see in DC and other cities of the world, and I have models of the Jefferson Memorial and the Lincoln and Washington, and we're kind of standing amongst that, and then we have various content that's relevant too, because SIGGRAPH was going to be in DC, but now it's not because it's going to be virtual. So that's the connection.
Right.
So anyway,
yeah, that's a good idea. Really
cool. By the way,
I want
to introduce you to Slick Rick. Hey, Slick Rick. This guy right here, Bill, should have been at our meetup about satellites. Because he has actually worked he's actually supplied equipment to the CubeSat folks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. I even worked on the Google. Well, it's not like Google anymore. The the big balloon thing that they did.
I don't know
I
that.
forgot the name of it
I
now.
don't know.
No, what they did was they created these balloons and got them up to like 30, 50,000 feet and used them as access points.
Oh yeah, that was
The only
they still do
problem,
yeah.
huh?
Or do
No,
they still? Do,
no. The problem is nobody would give them a license to fly, so
Uh,
they had to go down to like Tierra del Fuego and Antarctica and crazy places like that
okay.
where there's no traffic.
Yeah,
But yeah, I actually turned it into a
I'm
company.
kind of we're getting a little off topic here, and I better get back on. That's
Sorry.
okay. That's all right. Okay, so if you haven't been to one of these before, every week I do a custom world for an event a week, and it's the Health Systems Chat. By the way, if you haven't subscribed, which I think most of you have, if you click on that link up there by the arrow, it'll bring up the web page, and you can subscribe. So this topic is about sustainability, healthcare, and the Internet of Things. And what I do is I kind of chat for about 5 or 10 minutes, kind of do a little bit of a brain dump, and then open it up for conversation. It's intended to be kind of organic. If there's something idea that you're working on, that can be what we talk about for 50 minutes. That's fine. But I will mention that I did this last year. And it was in conjunction with, or not, I mean, obviously this is not affiliated with the Internet of Things world. It's happening right now. It's a virtual event. And last year we were standing around on a microcontroller with lots of little sensors. So it was like Raspberry Pi stuff. And so this year I'm not doing that because I want to do something different. And tomorrow, just to further complicate it, I'm moderating a tweet chat. And in the tweet, it's hashtag. I guess I should. Oh, it's right here. HITSM, which stands for Health Information Technology Social Media, and it's at it's at noon tomorrow East Coast time. And so these are my tweet chat topics here, and so the subject is related to sustainability. It's health, IT, and sustainability. And one of the things that I know is true because I've sensed it and looked it up and gotten the documentation about it. It's funny, I keep looking out in the audience and thinking those are social media avatars. But anyway, if healthcare is the largest industry in the United States right now in terms of employment, okay, it may be larger in terms of other things as well. And if it was if it was a country, it'd be the 13th largest source of greenhouse gas as countries go. And lots of research has been done that healthcare is full of waste. And if anybody here has ever, dealt with healthcare, for your own personal, requirements, you just notice that they have to ask you the same damn information over and over again, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and you think about all the single-use projects, all the plastic, so carbon, just wasted emotion, wasted economic dollars. And there are a lot of people unhappy with healthcare. Patients are unhappy. I mean, the health insurance system in the United States is, always a big, political hot potato. And the people who work in healthcare, the doctors, are unhappy. In fact, there's something called physician burnout because they're being forced to see more and more patients and increase productivity, and it's unsustainable. So there's all kinds of sustainability is not just about climate and the environment, or even about waste. Okay, it's also about human capital, about social. Are our systems sustainable? If you have a social system and an economy and a nation, and and there's something about it that prevents it from growing and flourishing, then it's not sustainable. In fact, the simplest definition of sustainability is this one up here, where it says it's meeting our own needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. So that's kind of the idea of sustainability. So the health IT folks, most of them are, some of the companies they belong to have sustainability initiatives, like philanthropic stuff. They donate stuff, they recycle stuff. In fact, I actually have talked to a bunch of companies. I contacted them. I said, "Oh, I noticed that you're doing they put out on their website. They say, "Oh, last year we reduced our travel and carbon emissions by 8%." So that's becoming important to marketing, because people want to deal with companies they feel that are good for the world and the environment. And in fact, we're here in the United States, or I'm in the United States, but there are places in Europe and Scandinavia where basically that organization doesn't want to do business with you unless they believe that you're a good guy, good gal, who believes as passionately as they are in saving the environment and so forth. Now, if you've ever been to one of these before, I'm pretty soon I'm going to open it up, and it's intended to be. If you have, please introduce yourself. If you have some project in the past or some special interest or sustainability passion, please tell us. Ask questions. Say, I saw something on the news the other day, or I read this headline, or I read this article. Or occasionally, you're an expert. Like, I did a climate thing on the climate about 6 months ago, and a guy who had just finished his PhD in climate science, who was at a climate conference in Spain, who was actually visiting with us, and that person was immediately surrounded and peppered by questions. Then I'm just about to the part where I'm going to open it up here. And that is, I don't think I'll need it, but the 30-second rule. 30-second rule is not that you only have 30 seconds to speak. The 30-second rule is every once in a while I force myself to shut up for 30 seconds. You'll actually see me count 1, 2, 3, and I'm practically have my hand on my mouth and I'm forcing myself not to speak. And that silence at 15 seconds is, you're going to feel the psychological urge to blurt out something on topic, something to move the conversation forward. Introduce yourself, ask a question, whatever. And so now we're just about to that 30-second thing. And now I want someone to jump in and introduce themselves, ask a question, say, I read this. Now. Twelve, 13.
All right, well, bye.
Please.
I guess, I don't know, the topic seems really broad.
It is.
I guess I don't know where to take it.
It's intentionally very broad, so you can take it almost anywhere.
I really liked what you were saying about sort of sustainability doesn't just mean, in terms of resources. It's also looking after sustainable psychological practices. Like that's something I hadn't really thought about. What kind of things? I mean, can you elaborate on that? What are some steps you could take?
I really like that. That's a wonderful question. I'm going to open it up. Does anybody else want to? So when I said sustainability is about meeting our needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Well, that future generation might be you. So meeting your needs now, so as to not compromise your happiness 5 years from now, might be an example. But anybody want to chime in anything on the idea of sustainability?
Yeah,
please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is Bill Maher here, and I actually designed many healthcare type devices. And what I found was, I'll just give you a quick example. Do I need to hit something?
I just turned on your microphone. You're good.
Oh, okay. All right. So what I found was really disturbing to me, because I actually design little computers. People come to me for help with the operating system and so forth. And then I would become a consultant to try to help them get started. And I say, I got this idea, I can build this thing. So what I did was I went off and did some kind of prototype, went back to this guy and says, this will help you do something much better, quicker, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately what happens is, they say, great, we'll either license your stuff or you can sell it to us. And I go, I'd rather build it for everybody else, not just you, so it doesn't become exclusive. And so I went about building this stuff, and the next thing I know is these lawyers and all of these people descend on me from these bigger companies and say, you need to package it like this, you got to go to this distributor, you got to go to basically a gangster.
Yeah.
They turn into gangsters and they say, here's my buddy, you got to go to this guy in order to get any kind of stuff, you got to go to this lawyer in order to get license. You got to go to this guy to do this and go to. Then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. You want me to sustain all this overhead that you guys do? They go, well, those are the rules. That's how we run things.
Yeah.
So, and that happens every damn project I get to work on. So this sustainability thing isn't about what? Excuse me.
What kind of devices are you talking about?
Oh, you name it. I mean, I just lost count. I mean, like the first one I did was actually for heart, what do I call it? Heart test machine. There was another one where I did the ventilator. Another one where I did, like an oxygen, like a pulse oximeter where it tied into your thing. And then I did something with a lot of cell phone sensors, stuff like that. So, for instance, if you just
let me jump.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. No. I want to jump in here. I think there's I just want to connect it back to what Pookie was talking about. I know that I've like for about 10 years been an independent consultant, and I kind of felt like Pookie's question was a psychological question, but what you're talking about is an interpersonal, almost So when you're dealing with the people you need to do business with, their expectations in the system that's in place that's intended to process you, so to speak, you were kind of revolting at it, I guess, is almost the word, and would I be interested in knowing what is your it sounds to me like you found it aggravating. What could be fixed about it? Do you have some ideas in that regard?
Well, I think if you take a look at before and after COVID, how much regulation you need to do in order to get anything approved to be able to use stuff. I'm not talking about building a heart pacemaker or anything like that. I'm talking about the simple medical stuff, like a simple sensor that will tell you your heart rate or something like that. And what will happen is you try to sell that. Let's say you want to sell something to Walgreens, or you want to have this or that. Well, there's all of these rules and ways of doing business that will force you to have everything packaged in a certain way that will have a lot of waste.
Yeah.
And then they would come back to you and say, oh, you got to do this, you got to have this regulation. And then you find out the regulation is actually written by the very people that are the leaders of the industry. So they make it so that only they can build this stuff.
By the way,
so that I'm saying you can help the sustainability.
I have also worked in the health IT and with devices, and I'm very familiar with the kind of regulatory friction and how wasteful that can be. That's an example of there are, I'm sure that if you Googled sustainability or economic viability or sustainability and healthcare is one of the most regulated industries. Of course, there is a reason for that. Presumably, it's because if the machine malfunctions, you could die. Oh my gosh, and so you get. But one of the things that happens is it's a lot easier to add a regulation than it is to subtract it, and that can have some effects on innovation. But I want to. I'm kind of where I felt like I thought you were going to go is, have you personally felt burnt out by this? Do you have any ways in which you maintain your enthusiasm or workarounds to help you compensate for these bad things about how this system is almost conspiring against you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's burnout, but I think it's more like the sustainability is really in the business model.
Okay.
That meaning that okay, in a normal project where there's a lot less regulation and so forth, you can get your return on your investment of a product very, very quickly, like Kickstarter and that kind of stuff. And you compare that to some kind of health thing, you could have the same equipment like on Kickstarter doing the same thing, and if you try to sell it to a Walgreens or whatever, you have like all this other. So what I'm saying is that there wasn't so much burnout. It's just that I think for a small little innovator like me, it's literally impossible. The only way you can really do it is create a product, and they'll just buy your company.
Well,
so it's really not.
Well, let me try to make it a little more general, and it sort of applies to not just healthcare regulation. Which, by the way, I mean, I'm very familiar with startups and doing something new, and it's just almost impossible to get a new product or service out in healthcare because it just requires so many lawyers. Hey, Ron, how you doing? But let's talk about more generally. Here's a thought. Here's something. And this is just my own personal kind of worry. Is the United States? I mean, I remember when in the 70s when I was in college and I would see the patents, and we had like half the every year it was like half the patents in the world. Were U.S. Of course, immediately after World War II, we were like 5% of the population and 50% of the productive capacity. So and now I think other countries have more patents than us. We're not. Is there? Obviously, innovation is important. Sustainability. I mean, can the United States sustain its position in the world? For our children, if we don't foster innovation, and I don't mean just in healthcare. I mean, so anybody have any opinions or thoughts on that kind of thing? Go ahead.
So my dad is an OT, an occupational therapist at a local hospital. I'm also in the U.S. And I'm a huge 3D printing nerd, and I did some consulting for his boss about trying to sort of
I got
crazy money.
I got to stop you. I just bought my 6th 3D printer. I'm just sending you a message, and it's just to remind me 3DP. I'm sorry to interrupt your flow. This is so when I go out later.
No worries.
I'm trying to hit the P. There it is. 3DP and send. Okay, that's when I go out later. I'll see that and it'll remind me to follow up with you. Okay, tell us about your 3D printing consulting in this area.
It's impressive. I'm only on my second one. So.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Anyway, so they were sort of curious about it's completely outside of their wheelhouse, the OT department, and they were telling me they were asking me questions about what the tech can do and stuff like that, and apparently they waste thousands of dollars to pay private companies to do braces. Like a kid has some sort of deformity where they have trouble walking, or they have an amputated arm or something like that. 3D printing can facilitate pennies on the dollar prosthetics that not only are way cheaper but way more refined towards someone's individual body and whatnot. And I'm just I want to help with that, and I really don't. That conversation sort of stopped because of COVID-19. But what can I do just individually as a college student to sort of
Well, first I do want someone else to weigh in, but I do want to mention there's a guy named John Shull at the University of Rochester, or Rochester Institute of Technology, I forget which, and he started a program, and I don't remember the name of it, but you may probably have bumped into it. It's a website that basically matches together people who need 3D printed limbs with people who have 3D printers, with people who are willing to sort of do the design and customization and kind of bird dogging to kind of manage and it's distributed tens of thousands of prosthetic hands and arms throughout the world over the last few years. Now,
what was that name?
His name is John Shull, Schull. We follow each other on Twitter. But if you remind me, when you see my message, send me that link. Are you on Twitter?
That's
really.
Right. I have a
that's right. No. You don't have. I don't mean do you tweet, but if you have a Twitter account, you can use it to contact. So I'm just saying is that I could tweet I could direct message him on Twitter and say, hey, I got this guy and blah blah blah. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting that I want to connect it back a little bit to what Bill was talking about. And so I bought a 3D printer 7 years ago because I wanted to build a robot for pediatricians to entertain kids. So just like when you go, I worked for an electronic health records company for many years, and it was pediatrics, EHR, okay, for electronic health records, and the pediatricians would have like these little stuffed animals on their stethoscope, and it was intended to to get the kid less scared, and I want to see that and get closer, and so I said, well, what about if I had a little animatronic robot that like sits in the pocket and it could talk and it would say, I love ABC Pediatrics and what's your name? I had a little speaker, and I'm working on my 4th version of it now. But anyway, I was in Washington D.C. at the time, and I built like 2 or 3 prototypes, and I went around. I actually did like almost like a stage thing, like a stage ventriloquist thing, where I'd have an argument with it, anyway, but I went to these meetups, and there were there were meetups, and they were pairing up like investors with inventors, and then and the beer and the wine and the pizza was paid for by law firms, hoping to do patent work or IP, corporate startup investment work and so forth, and I ended up talking to a lot of them about productizing my hardware, my little robot, and I went down that road pretty far without spending a lot of money, but it was interesting, to be wined and dined and pull out your little robot. And what I eventually learned, which Bill probably knows extremely well, and that is hardware is hard. It's like hardware is hard, and it's hard to push out an update of something that's physical as opposed to something you can download some firmware or whatever, or a new version of the operating system. Anyway, but I wanted to go though. But the interesting thing was, now what that had no personal information. If there were people talking to me about, hey, could we? So I was talking to a children's hospital, and they said, could we send like 400 of these little robots home with the kids? And then the robot could like help educate them, and then and the problem is with that, you start to get into personally identifiable information. Okay, I mean, how do you know which robot is with which kid and all that? So I stayed away from that. But I had a little bit of a taste of the system sort of descending on me and saying, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to do this, and then you got to do this, and you got to do this. And I kind of got sucked along that path for a ways until I said, you know what, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm not doing it, I have my day job. It's completely different. And so one of the things I would like to do is, and that's what John Shull did. John Shull, he did something very simple. About 10 years ago, he created a Google Map database, and he just allowed people to enter like, oh, I need an artificial arm or limb. I have a 3D printer. Or I'm willing to do the customization work and the fill in the interstitial cracks and workflows to make it happen, and it just took off. Okay, and now it's a foundation, and it's just I've printed some of their 3D, their hands and so forth, and I will just say that my way, I could see that I was going to get. I could just knowing my personality, if I went down that road to actually productize something, which that is your day job. Okay, so you can't be like me and avoid it by not But I could definitely see it was the kind of situation where I would end up overcommitting and sort of ruining the day, and it wasn't going to be any fun anymore. So now I don't know in terms of you, Pookie, or what were you majoring in?
Oh, I'm majoring in video production.
Okay.
I'm just a huge nerd.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, no. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to point out there's a couple of things I did to get around the problem you're talking about. The first thing I did, this was about almost 10 years ago now, is I created a project, got a bunch of people together, and created a thing called a Beagle board.
Were you did it?
The idea was that
what was your role with the Beagle board?
Well, my role was that I would actually build commercial versions of the Beagle board, as well as writing the first check get all the parts for the initial build.
Wow!
Because there were people from TI that were got some
could
time
you
off.
could you
Distributors.
explain to folks what the Beagle board was and is?
Oh, okay. Well, this was after the Arduino thing came
Uh-huh.
out and before the Raspberry Pi was invented. And what we did was say TI was trying to sell reference designs for their mobile phone design. They couldn't really get customers. And so they said, well, okay, why don't we just sell it to just regular people? And they were just thinking of selling their eval kits, which was like $3,000, $4,000 or $6,000, I think, at the time. So what we said was, okay, why don't we strip all of this extra crap off the board and sell it basically as cheaply as we can get it, put it in something the size of a credit card, and make it cheap enough so any engineer can buy it without getting any grief from their wife.
Well, just let me jump in here.
Yeah.
If folks have heard of Arduino or the Raspberry Pi, which are very, 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 very small computers that you can buy for $3 or $4 in many cases, and then you can make toys. But there are people actually building products out of them, and they're great for prototyping. And there's a tremendous amount of tutorial information, YouTube videos, and so you don't have to be an engineer to be an engineer in a way, the Pocket Beagle was in that realm, and I've actually played around quite a bit with the what's it called? The Beagle board, but the Pocket Beagle. The Pocket Beagle is even a tinier version that can fit in a matchbox, just about. But
yeah, exactly. But that's actually harder to work with because it's tying directly to the pins. Yeah. But the general idea was that you don't have to be a big company, have to go through, because in order to build any kind of computer, you have to have an account with a distributor. So we got rid of all of this stuff. You go to a website and order it. And
so let's connect this back up to innovation and sustainability. So I guess go ahead.
So to get around the problem of getting permission and talking to the right distributors, so you could, just like you did with the 3D printer, you can get a board, add all this extra stuff, so that gets around it. But what we really wanted to do was to make it so all these people can play around with it on their own. But in the case of like medical and especially companies where you have to have patents and all that, what we also did, or at least what I did, was work with like ASU. And the idea is a lot of these academic institutions, they have professors or somebody and if you're a student there, you can go to a professor and then create a project, and then their lawyers would come in and say, we can cover your ass.
That's right. Well, now
and then be able. So, like for instance, for what you're trying to do, you can go find a professor willing to sponsor you or whatever, and create a project, and then just go around town helping people out as part of a university project.
My limited interaction with the universities in this realm is, for example, the university then claims like 50% of whatever future proceeds.
Oh yeah, well
and then and I don't know where the student fits in, to that, because I also know, the graduate students have often, do a lot of the work, maybe a lot of the ideas, and then they don't necessarily get a cut. You see what I'm saying?
You don't get. You probably, they'll, like for instance, if you get any contract and things like that, university, of course, being gangsters that they are, they'll take half.
Yeah.
But what you get out of that is the fact that you were able to go through the project.
Yeah. So that's just
so if you're expecting to make a lot of money, you won't be able to. Well, you also lose it all if you try to do it all yourself.
Oh, there's Thomas.
That's the other part.
We have this. We have Slick Rick left, but I want to say Thomas here was also at the CubeSat.
Yes.
I just want to mention to Thomas here that this guy, Bill, has worked with CubeSat technology and supplied equipment. So just thought I'd mention. Hey, Ron, I just.
So does that make any sense for you, Pookie?
Oh yeah. I've been playing with Raspberry Pi since middle school.
Yeah.
So this is all very cool to hear.
Yeah.
I had thought about buying a Beagle board, and then I ended up going with the Raspberry Pi in like 8th grade.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just simply,
I don't know.
Go ahead, please. Sorry.
My university is it doesn't have like any engineering programs, although I'm not far from one that does, and there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. Where are you?
And I don't know. I'm up in Maine, and I'm going to Hudson University, but the University of Maine at Orono is not too far from there, and they have a huge engineering program that's
Okay.
kind of open to,
Kind of, kind of something of interest to me. Now, your videography, you mentioned, are you doing computer generated stuff? I mean, modeling?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right now, my big wheelhouse is I've been self-teaching Blender, which
Yeah.
is like an animation program that I also use for 3D printing
Right.
and a bunch of
Yeah,
other
same
stuff.
here. Yeah, in fact, for this tweet chat, people, last year or 2 years ago, I moderated a tweet chat on the idea of 3D-ness. That is 3D, digital 3D stuff, and digital 3D is relevant to virtual reality. It's relevant to 3D printing. Okay, so there actually is a connection there. In fact, I could do it right now. I'm not going to waste your time, but I've had makerspace 3D printing events, and I bring in the stuff that I design, that I 3D print. I can actually import them into AltSpace. My little robots, the 3D exoskeleton. Hey, Ron. Ron had worked in corporate IT for many years. As you've been listening, any would you like to contribute to the conversation, Ron?
I really have nothing to add. I'm sorry.
What an asshole! No, just what a very, very humble person you are. Okay. Yeah. So anybody? Hey, Thomas. We started.
Yeah.
We're going to do a reboot here, reset. Okay. And that is, I'm going to dump a little bit of information I found. My wife works as like a VP of sustainability for a company, and of course, COVID and coronavirus came along, and a lot of the sustainability stuff is kind of philanthropic, or kind of maybe cost the company money, to do it the more expensive but more environmentally friendly way, and of course now the economy has really kind of shrunk, and so one of the things that I've been kind of interested in is what is the interaction or connection between the coronavirus sort of crisis and sustainability. Okay, so before the coronavirus crisis, the economy was going gangbusters. People had lots of money, at least at the corporate level, and they were funding this and funding that. And one of the things she also does is a philanthropic stuff. So people approach her and say, could you give us money for this, that, or the other cause? But this is what I read recently. In fact, like this morning in preparation for this, okay? That was, so in 2008, we had a recession, all right? It was a pretty deep one, not as deep as this, okay? Of course, this is, caused by a completely different set of forces. And some study, all I saw was the sentence. There was a link I could have followed it to, but it said that the companies that had sort of formal or institutionalized sustainability sort of programs, and there's different ways in which that can show up in a company. Everything from, lip service and what they call greenwashing, trying to pretend you're, to, actual, the recycling, or they're aligning their technology with environmental goals. There was but anyway, the companies that had these did better at surviving the recession. So it's kind of interesting because you kind of say, well, wait a minute, it would be the more selfish ones who survived, and again, obviously there's a lot of assumptions built into that. So, but the other one this was interesting. And so it was research done on consumer attitudes towards sustainability and the environment and climate and so forth during the COVID crisis. Okay. So you got the lockdown, January, March, April or so. And there was a sizable uptick in sort of interest and commitment to incorporating those ideas about the environment and the climate, sustainability and justice and equality or whatever into the consumer buying, decision making. All right. As at the same time as this crisis, and then there was a paragraph where they speculated about why that might be. They said, well, one possibility is everybody saw how clear the sky got. Remember all those pictures there was like a picture from like in India, okay, and apparently in 50 years they had never seen the Himalayas. Okay, but here was this picture where you could see this cityscape, and there were the Himalayas. And it's like never in 50 years had they ever seen the Himalayas, and they saw, and so that, so there's something that struck people about that. Okay, I know I'm in Columbus, in Ohio, and we're near a river, and in April when things were just locked down, it's completely tight, nothing on the streets whatsoever. Ducks and geese would fly by my balcony on the 9th floor. I mean, I'd be standing there, and in fact, it'd make me start because I'd hear the wings go whoosh, and then I'd see them flying down the street at like 10 foot. So wildlife. I saw wildlife. And then of course you have Black Lives Matter. And people are stuck at home. Okay, and they're watching all this, and you're given time to ruminate. You know what I mean? And there's some, again, I don't know how it's widespread, but I know it's come up in some of these events, and that is there's a kind of a question. Well, what is post-coronavirus, post-COVID going to be like? Are we just going to go back to quote normal? Is it going to be a new normal? Might it be a better normal? Okay, and so when you look at like the list of, sorry about that, Ron, list of like the sustainability goals: poverty, hunger, good health and well-being, education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, and so forth. I could list a bunch of them there. Could some good, so I think it's human of us to want to, make the best of a bad situation. Maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of wandering around here. Someone throw me a lifeline here and tell me what you think. What you think I'm saying?
I want to mention something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to mention something in my situation. So I work on a lot of projects. So in terms of sustainability, one of the things that is, I don't think we're ever going to go back to this normal thing where everybody's flying around like crazy just to do it. So now I've actually got this sort of pitch that says, okay, let's have a meeting instead of, flying, which we obviously can't do. Let's discuss things, put a 3D model in front. I'll show you how to build this stuff, 3D print a small version of it, that. And then I can actually justify somebody buying a $600 Quest headset just so they can avoid having to do this. And so they're saying, well, we've already got a budget, for travel. That's all going, but we haven't used the travel. Yeah. So can we use the travel budget to buy headsets? And then I would I've been holding these meetings, these project people I work with. So I'm saying in terms of sustainability, just being able to use a lot less resources, cutting out a lot of travel, and all this. But then at the same time, they're saying, well, we want to go, visit these places. Like I'm in Scottsdale. So I said, well, why don't I make a virtual Scottsdale so you can see what it'd been like if you had been able to come here. Yeah. So I think this virtual travel and virtualization of people meeting, I think that's going to keep going. I don't think we're ever going to go back to all these hotel rooms.
I think everybody's going to. Does anybody disagree? Because I think everybody here would agree with that. I don't know how much. Go ahead, Ron. Go ahead, Ron.
My nephew is the chief financial officer at Google, and so he's doing a lot of research on what's going to come after the virus. And his opinion is that it's all going to go back to the way it was because corporations are going to drive it that way. They find that in-person meetings work better in terms of developing synergy and creating new ideas than any other way of meeting, even including this.
Interesting. Okay. Well, by the way,
go ahead. For big companies, but I'm thinking, for there's so many startups that have such small teams that is it really worth? Is it really justified to have everybody commute back and forth every day? Especially when you're thinking about the broader, climate.
Well,
implications of that.
Well, I think the bigger question is what's going to pay off best for a company, even a small one. Real estate is expensive. It's an asset. You can write it off. So there are some good things about having real estate, but it's a cost, right? And as a company grows, they've got to increase their real estate footprint.
Right.
But if you can do things virtually,
Yeah.
then
Well,
you save all
which
of that.
which by the way, I mean I have an undergraduate degree in accountancy, okay, and I went to medical school. Yeah, it is weird, okay, but I took a course in international accounting, and one of the things we talked about was how you can move systems through tax incentives, okay, and you see that here in the U.S. the United States, tax incentives for electric cars and so forth. But I'm reminded when you talked about depreciation, how of physical assets, there are various levers there. But I want to plug next week's event, if you don't mind. I'm going to go up here and I want to read it slightly to you. See this robot up here? Okay, I make a custom world for every event, and that robot is the last robot looking at the last seedling. And you can see under glass over here, you see the earth under glass, okay, like a terrarium. And so we're going to be in this biosphere 1,000 years in the future, talking about what might have been. How could we have avoided our extinction, our mutual extinction? But what I want to get to, though, is this. The topic is sustainability transition. So a sustainability transition is like Ron, you gave an anti-example. So the idea that we're going to go back to the old way, meaning we're not going to make a transition to a new, better way. So the science, the economic and the sociology and the political science and the technology, systems, technology, knowledge and theory and so forth about how to move societies, from, let's say from gas to electric or from something to solar. Okay. We're talking about large scale systemic change that sticks, where you're basically moving to a new equilibrium. Okay. You got to move because if you don't move to a new equilibrium, you're going to slip back to the old equilibrium. And I just want to read a couple of sentences here. Because if you do come, it'd be great to see a week, 7 days from now what has matured in your mind. But let me read this to you. Okay. Sustainability transition. And there's actually a research conference going on in Vienna, Austria. That's where I look for conferences to inspire these events. So that's where I got this stuff. A sustainability transition is a radical transformation toward a sustainable society as a response to a number of persistent problems confronting contemporary modern societies. Okay, that was 10 years ago. Let me read this one. Now this really gets complicated, but I'll read it slow. A process of fundamental and irreversible change in a society's culture, institutional structures, and practices. It takes between 25 and 50 years for a transition to fully materialize. Transitions can be identified in societal systems like energy, mobility, water, agriculture, healthcare, and are a result of a coevolution of economic, cultural, technological, ecological, and institutional developments at different levels. Transitions are characterized by the emergence of new structures, cultures, practices. Other key characteristics are coevolution, self-organization, and adaptation. Examples of possible transitions are from coal to gas, from linear to circular economy, or transition from bureaucratic healthcare to human-centered healthcare. There's a lot of jargon in there, buzzwords and so forth. But I'm kind of curious what people, did any interesting neurons fire as I read that?
Oh yeah.
What? Like what?
So coming from Maine, we live in the woods, and I've grown up kind of in this bubble of sustainability talk. I worked for 3 or 4 years at a summer camp called Tanglewood. That sustainability is like their number one goal, and then I worked for a company that's like a video company that does sustainability documentaries, and that's a big part of their budget every year. And I don't know, it's hard for me to think about sort of, you were talking about tax incentives and stuff like that how can we sort of motivate this giant societal change that frankly needs to happen for, if we're going to at least curtail climate change a little bit. How can we even start to kind of change the culture around that? Because we have it in Maine somewhat,
Yeah.
but I don't think that's true of the rest of the country or world.
Thomas, are you there? I think he's on his 2D system.
I am here. No, I'm definitely listening, and
Care to weigh
just trying to
in?
just trying to I think it's.
It's enormous. I know. I just want to say. I just want to say. As I read that, I just went. At the end. I wanted to go. Whoa, man! My head's exploding. You know what I mean? Did someone just pass me a joint or what? Because it was just like, is that pie in the sky? Is it just ridiculous to even talk in that kind of language, or is there something worthwhile about that?
I think one of the things that I wrestle a little bit with are, what are the priorities, and how do we prioritize, as opposed to just changing everything at one time. It's I think people get, when they see something like the Green New Deal that's really designed to be kind of a comprehensive, pretty massive shift that's really hard for people to get their head wrapped around, not to mention the cost. So it's what are, we talked about going back to business as usual, being a negative thing, and I'm asking myself, what is the negative impact of that? What is the is air travel, for instance, hugely detrimental to the environment, or is it cars, or is it, what are the priorities?
Yeah. Kind of I'm hearing you talk,
it doesn't seem
talking about, like, what is it? Pareto.
One of the biggest ones is.
Go ahead.
One of the biggest ones is eating meat.
Yep.
Right.
Food.
If you could get everybody to become a vegetarian, that would greatly reduce the amount.
And by the way, Ron is a vegetarian. I just want to let everybody know, right?
I was not proselytizing.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm just saying, if you're going to get the entire culture to do something like that, and it takes 50 years.
Yeah. So I got a question for you. Would you eat artificial meat that was sustainable?
I do eat artificial meat that is sustainable.
When you say artificial meat, I mean, are you talking about something that is identical to meat, except that of its provenance, its origin, or is it, again?
Yeah, it's made out of vegetables, but it looks like meat.
Okay, all right.
Tastes like meat.
Okay.
It's almost consistent.
Okay.
Like meat.
All right. I didn't mean to interrupt, except I did, so maybe I'm being hypocritical. But thank you, Thomas, for letting me put you on the spot, and then you gallantly stepped into the gap. So.
And just real quick.
But I have a question.
Okay, let's go ahead, Thomas, and then on to you, Ron.
Back to the subject of IoT, I think, one of the biggest challenges we have is we're putting all these IoT devices out there, and people aren't necessarily thinking through what to do with the data.
Yep.
So that's an area that I work in consulting, and have worked in with healthcare as well, because it's just it's one thing to put the devices out there. It's another thing to program the logic and the rules and stuff that all really make
and also the privacy issues. I'm reminded of one of the articles over here. One of the links, I'll get to you, Ron, there in a moment, is about the impact of COVID on sustainable cities. Of course, sustainable cities. Smart cities. Smart cities. You rely on a lot of IoT, and when you look at the connection to climate, one of the examples I read was, every day, you may get a measure of overall pollution, let's say, on your dashboard or whatever, someplace. But what if every block had a cheap little pollution sensor? Okay, and so instead of like 3 or 4 days later, 3 or 4 days earlier, it's like your sensor notices a local increase in pollution, and then you very quickly drill down and say, okay, there's this business like half a block from there, and the fingerprints of the chemicals match, or whatever, and then you get on them soon and say, look, you have an incipient problem, you need to fix it. Okay, and so there's an example of IoT smart city. But the other statement I read was, like for tracing. So like in some countries, you're using the mobile phones and you're using facial recognition, and you're talking about what's been called the panopticon. A panopticon was something I know from Victorian times about of the all-seeing eye, that you can that the government or whoever can see everything, and that through that centralized authority, then you achieve whatever society's ends are, but obviously you're giving up a lot of privacy potentially there. And so, but the point was they said that the COVID is going to be used in some situations to sell the panopticons, to sell the digital surveillance state. Anyway, Ron, yes, have you forgotten your question?
Oh. No. One of the things that was in that article that you read to us was that a shift takes from 25 to 50 years. Was that the number?
Yeah, that's what it said.
Why does it take that long?
I don't know. I haven't read all. I'm going to post a bunch of links just like this, and then the morning of, I'll read them. So I don't know why it takes 25 years.
I don't think that's any longer true. I don't think it can be true because when autonomous automobiles are available, I think the shift to autonomy is going to be very rapid. I don't think it's going to be 25 years. I think it'll be more like 3 or 4.
Pookie, you had a comment?
Yeah, my dad, who's 55 now, and we talk about this a lot, the sort of leadership gap where like the culture in at least in the liberal college that I go to is there, but the leadership gap of the people who are actually making the decisions are 40 to 50 years older and weren't educated. A lot of it is education, I think. Sustainability.
So there's actually, I just want to get back to Ron's question. Yes, it takes 25 to 50 years for the old farts to die.
Well, I take that personally, and I resent that remark.
Yeah, that is true. Because I was in college when Nixon went into China, and I got this speech from people, and they were explaining to me, because I'm Chinese, I was born in Hong Kong and all this stuff, went to England, and they explained that as part of this thing with Nixon was that it's going to take 3 generations before China can be, a world power. And this was them talking in 78. Yeah. And they said that they're not going to try to convince older people to do something. They're going to concentrate on the kids and changing.
Well, there's
by generation.
There's a famous quote. It might have been by Steve Jobs, although someone else here may know who really said it. And that is that we tend to overestimate what can be accomplished in the short term, but underestimate what can be accomplished in the long term. Does that make sense? And I always find that, and I've actually often thought about that. Well, why is that? Is it true? And if it's true, why? Does it have something to do about like we're kind of short-sighted, or is it because change means something different a year from now than 20 years? It's not the same thing. Change then 20 years from now is not the same as change now. I'm not talking about just the difference in time, but it actually literally our psychological structures, how the meaning of things evolve. Anyway, go ahead, Ron.
Well, I was going to say, in the past, a lot of the causes of change being slow to penetrate the society is just the inertia of the society itself. If your economic system has a structure to it, you don't want to see that change. The people making money don't want to see that change. So they'll fight any change that interferes with the status quo. And that's what it means to be a conservative, right? And as long as the economics, the infrastructure, the people that are in positions of power are where they are, they're going to fight that change.
Yeah, but there's a societal part of it. Like, for instance, take a look at how long it took for us to get rid of cigarettes. And the same thing with beef, right? I mean, when I was a kid, they asked the astronaut, hey, what does astronauts eat? They go, oh, yeah, well, before every flight, we eat steak and eggs. So go ahead and change that society. right? I mean, every kid would, oh, what's your favorite meal? Well, steak and eggs.
Well, folks, guess what?
Correct.
Today,
We're almost to the end. We have 4 minutes left, 3 minutes left. And when I worked in corporate, I hated meetings that lasted even 1 minute after. In 3 or 4 minutes, I'm gone. You are welcome to stay. You can stand and talk to each other. You can read stuff. But I do want to encourage you, if you're interested, click on that. See where that big gold arrow is? It says click to subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, I do this once a week. I pick a different topic every week. If you click on that link, you can subscribe, and you can also see what's upcoming. And is anybody here, and there was someone I cut off, and I think it might have been Ron, so this is your second opportunity here. Does someone want to give us a thought of the day or a summary and synthesis to kind of ring us out, so to speak? Ring out the new year, or whatever, ring in the new year, as they say.
Well, I think one of the ways COVID is going to change society is all the people that had a tendency to get divorced are now divorced.
Interesting. That's an interest. That's a very kind of pithy kind of thing. What it makes me think of is it takes a certain amount of time together accumulated to. I'm going to mute you, Skeeter. Someone. Oh, no. I'm muting. Sorry, wrong person. It was the person behind you. Not your fault. Apologize. But, okay, so it takes a certain amount of accumulated hours together for a sort of process to run to completion. And by spending 24/7 together in a very compressed mode, maybe that's, you see what I'm saying? Does that kind of make sense? Which I want to tell you, now about 10 years ago, my wife and I went to, we stayed in Marathon, and we didn't talk to anybody. We were there for 10 days, and we congratulated ourselves that we could be together 24/7. In a couple of years, we're going to retire, and I think we're probably going to move into Mexico, by the way. Anyway, but for 4 months, she worked from home, I worked from home anyway, and my mother was here. For 4 months we were together, and we didn't go out, like boom, zero. And we did fine. And then we said, that's a good sign, because in a couple of years when we retire, this is like a trial run. So, but we've been married 28 years. So, okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I am out of here. I hope to see you next week. I love Altspace for these kinds of conversations. Unfortunately, I'm getting Paul. I'm going to mute you. We've been friends for 2 months, so I hope you don't mind. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you.